Hello everyone, and welcome back to another episode in our boss fight breakdown series. Today's episode is going to be a little bit shorter, and that is due to the nature of the boss fights that we are having a look at, but they are important boss fights to the overall story, and who knows, maybe people are struggling with them, so that's not going to keep us from taking a moment to go through and analyze them and break them down so you can better learn the mechanics and how to properly deal with these boss fights. Now, with that being said, before we jump into the fights against Maximus and Klaw, I do want to remind you to check and see if you are subscribed to the channel. If you're not, please take a moment and do so, as the subscription is free and easy, and I bring content to you on a daily basis. A final announcement that I do want to make is I am starting to do streams live on Twitch. The first stream that I will be doing will actually be today at 7:30 p.m., and that is 7:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you want to check in on that stream, we'll be there for a couple of hours doing a project based around a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, and I'm really excited to bring that back into the foresight. So feel free to use the link in the description to follow me on Twitch. And I do plan on doing streams a little more consistently beyond that as well. As a final word, don't forget to leave a like on the video if you found this video helpful, and leave a comment letting me know what boss fights you're excited to see in this series, or bosses that you may be struggling with. So without further ado, let's jump into the fight against Maximus. Now, we don't spend a lot of time in Autolon, but there's a very specific progression as to how this works. A lot of the enemies, or the only enemies that you will fight in this area, are the industrial working class of the city of Autolon, and they are helmed by Maximus, and you do want to make your way through fighting off those grunts. But when you actually get to the overall Maximus fight, it's pretty straightforward, but it can be a little technical. Now, Maximus doesn't bring in any grunts per se, but he does have some autonomous drones that he will pull in that can make the fight a little bit more difficult. Now, most of Maximus's fights strategies are based on the damage that he deals from his own laser cannon or these autonomous drones that he summons in. But we do make some pretty good progress on getting him down. He has 3 different stages, the first of which he just has his own laser cannon. In the second phase, he starts using some more of his drones, and the drones have some attacks that will either suck you into them, or they'll just spout off some lasers that will provide some nuisance and some laser fire across the area. But when you get into the third stage, that's really the part that you can find that's a little more tricky, if you will. Now, the drones will continue doing what they do, but there is a phase right here where Maximus will unleash a large amount of attacks with some very large sweeping ion cannons, and that can be devastating. Thankfully, Thane does conjure up a protective barrier if you are unable to stagger out Thane, or if you're unable to stagger out Maximus, I should say, as he gets that attack underway. But if you are able to, or he's relatively low on his health bar, you're going to want to just go ahead and burst him down, as you can avoid that section of the fight altogether. And the laser fires are similar to that one that you just saw across the screen. They're very wide, and they sweep across the battlefield. And here you do see that he has those lasers just starting up, but he was low enough to the point where I could stagger him out, which stops that phase of the fight cold dead in its tracks, which is really beneficial in terms of finishing out this fight. Now, Maximus will always retreat to the top or far end of that stage when he is ramping up for that attack. So if you notice him running over that way, you can either seek to stagger him out, or you can retreat back to where Thane is providing refuge with his amber fields. But with a couple more attacks here, we do have Maximus all finished out, and he's fairly straightforward, but yes, has a couple of mechanics that can be quite tricky to work your way around. So definitely worth taking some time to clarify how he works. Now, the next boss fight is quite a ways down along the way in the story, and it is against Klaw. And Klaw is another fight that is more annoying than it is difficult because of the types of attacks that he doles out. He has these sonic attacks which will either sweep out in waves or ricochet off of the general scope of the area and this arena that you are fighting him in. And that's what proves to be the most difficult more than anything else. Now, his fight really only has those two phases. He has the first phase where he's unleashing some pretty standard attacks, but as he gets into his second stage, that's where you see a lot of his sonic attacks start to rebound quite a bit more. And he even reaches a stage where he himself bursts back and forth across the arena. He has a concussive blast that emanates from himself that can deal some pretty substantial damage if you're not careful. But at the end of the day, Klaw is really a quite manageable fight as long as you understand how he works. And you do want to keep a pendant finger on your combat roll ability, as that is going to be a lifesaver on multiple occasions, especially with all of the projectile spamming that goes around the arena emanating from Klaw himself. And his attacks, they're pretty much telegraphed, the ones that deal massive amounts of damage, but at the same time you really don't want to underestimate them because, well, they will knock you flat, and that's not exactly a fun experience for anyone involved. So at this point where Klaw is relatively stationary, I am using some of Gambit's Deadly Deal in order to burn down what's remaining out of his health and also get a good read on his final stagger meter, and with a couple of final attacks, we are in the clear to go ahead and finish out this fight as well, as once you understand him, you can make your way around him fairly easily. Stay out of the way when he is bouncing around in that reverberation type attack, and you really should have most of this cut out for you. Well, that's going to be all the boss fights of today's video. We'll be back with another episode of Boss Fight Breakdowns on Monday, so be looking forward to that. And once again, feel free to come join me on Twitch later this afternoon and all Fridays at 7:30 p.m. if that is something that you have time for. Well, thanks again for watching, and you have yourself a fantastic rest of your day.